Yeah, no problem. So was there anything in particular you're kind of like more curious about in regards to like knotweed control?
Yeah, I mean, for our spot in particular, you know, the only thing that raised red flags for us, you know, I'm pretty sure we've communicated this to you too, is just that we were worried about herbicide use along the river. But other than that, I can't imagine that we would have any sort of issue with what y'all are doing. I mean, we were pretty excited about being able to help with projects like that. So I'd just be curious to know, like, the basics, like how long you've been doing it, you know, like what sort of success you've had, I guess, like why knotweed? Like, why are you removing the knotweed in particular? I'm guessing it's not the only invasive along the river. So yeah, just like a really basic rundown would be cool.
Okay. Yeah, that gives me, I can kind of go through a couple slides here, and I think that I could answer a lot of those questions, kind of like give you just like the background for it.
Cool.
Let's see here. So our riparian enhancement project, each year we plant 8 acres of new habitat and install 10,000 native trees and shrubs annually. And for the knotweed side, we work on both sides of the canal. So Little Quilcene, Big Quilcene, and then the Dosey Wallops. And also Big Beef Creek, Big Anderson Creek, Dewata River, Tahuya River, and the Union River, where my office is actually right at the mouth of the Union River estuary. So yeah, that's kind of like our stats, and we survey over 45 miles of rivers and streams. And we use our Washington Conservation Corps to do all the field work for us. So they're like the boots on the ground. And here's just a couple pictures of like surveys. This one was on the Upper Lily Wap. And here's a planting we did on the Skokomish River. And this is kind of what you'd expect to see like us in the river looking like. And so this was a site on the Union River, and you can just see kind of like what kind of monoculture knotweed is easily capable of becoming. And then after we controlled it, several years after, you can kind of see how it's a pretty bare understory. So there's like not much growing underneath it because it has such like dense shade and canopy that can establish. So that's kind of why our enhancement side of the project is pivotal for like replacing knotweed with actual like functioning diverse native plant communities. So on the Dosey Wallops, the main knotweed is Bohemian knotweed, but there's also 4 species of knotweed that we have in Washington. So Japanese Bohemian, Giant, and Himalayan. And Bohemian is actually a hybrid of Giant and Japanese. And here's kind of like the picture IDs for each of them. So Himalayan has those lance-shaped leaves. Giant, at the base of the leaf where the petiole attaches, it's heart-shaped, where Japanese has these flat base leaves right where the petiole attaches. So, and then Bohemian's kind of like a hybrid of both of these. So it's kind of in between size, and kind of sometimes it has flat bases and other times it has like the heart-shaped leaves. So we do 2 main methods of herbicide application, and one of them is foliar spray. So just with backpack sprayers, we're applying an herbicide called Imazapyr, and I can show you a slide on that after this. But the advantages of foliar spray is you use a small amount of herbicide, and it's pretty quick to apply. So you can get like long river stretches where we have to survey and treat. You can kind of move through those and get to all of our like 45 miles of river. And the disadvantages, there is a risk of pesticide drift. So if there's some wind or something, like immediate vegetation might get some damage. So like say this knotweed up here is like 10 square feet. You wouldn't really see much damage outside of that footprint of the 10 feet, but you do have like a little bit of drippage, and it's possible there could be like some wind, but it's still pretty targeted. I kind of like this photo of one of our crew members kind of just targeting these smaller ones that we've been treating already. And so, yeah, there's benefits, but also some risks to it. And then we also do stem injection. I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you, but this is like super targeted, very precise. There's no drift. And if there's any like native plants or ornamentals, this is like the go-to method because it goes directly into the internode, which is like these little chambers here. And then from there, it goes systemically into the roots and controls it. But that's more time consuming. And you also, each time you pull the trigger, you do 3 milliliters of injection, and you do that for each stem. So there'd be a total of 6 for this 2-stem knotweed. So it's concentrated, so you can go over. So you got to be careful about how much you're using, because the labels have like a specific amount you should be using per acre per year. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with herbicide, but there's kind of a couple different things to consider. The active ingredients, so that's the actual component of the pesticide that controls the plant. And then there's also inert ingredients, which are the inactive material that have no pesticidal activity, and labels are not required to say what inert ingredients they're using, because it's considered confidential business information, but they do have to show the percent of it. Yeah. So and then pesticide formulations are like what you'd buy if you had herbicide, and those are a mixture of active and inert ingredients. And then the product or trade name is like basically the brand name. So like a very common one would be like Roundup, which you hear a lot about. And different brand names can have the same active ingredient, but it differs because they have their unique formulations of inert and active ingredients. And something I just like to bring up is like you hear a lot in the media about like glyphosate and Roundup, and it's really important to like separate the two, because Roundup uses the active ingredient glyphosate, but it also has another mixture of inert ingredients, which sometimes can be more toxic to aquatic organisms. So I'll just show you kind of the two herbicides we use are Polaris, and the active ingredient is Imazapyr. And this is non-selective, so you can use it on grasses, weeds, and brush and vine species. It's aquatically approved, so you can use it in applications near water, streams, or wetlands. And it has a half-life of about 1 to 5 months, and it's degraded by microbial activity, which includes bacteria, fungi, and protozoa. So the mode of action for Polaris is it's an amino acid synthesis inhibitor. So it inhibits an enzyme called ALS, which produces 3 essential amino acids. And because mammals and humans, we don't produce these because we don't photosynthesize, it's not toxic to humans or animals. And studies for the toxicity of Imazapyr show that it's excreted by mammals rapidly with no bioaccumulation, and has low toxicity to fish, algae, and no effect on submerged vegetation. So we applied a 1% solution for that, and this is what we're spraying with. And then for the injectors, we use AquaNeat, which has the active ingredient glyphosate in it. And these two are similar, AquaNeat and Polaris. The main difference is AquaNeat binds to the soil. So once it hits the soil, it's no longer active and it can't kill plants, which is pretty crucial for restoration work, because if we're applying near native plants that we've installed, you won't have any of that activity in the ground for it's immediate, so there's no potential for the installed plants to be injured from it.
Cool.
So yeah, that's kind of like the herbicide spiel. I guess one other thing is, so in March of 2015, glyphosate was reclassified as a probable carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the World Health Organization. And they had 17 independent experts who were freed from vested interests. So that's pretty important, because a lot of times the manufacturers of herbicides are the ones who are funding the research on like the toxicity of these chemicals.
Right.
So yeah, there's definitely a conflict of interest. So this is, I mean, I was pretty stoked to see that was not an issue for this study. And they just reviewed all the peer-reviewed scientific evidence for how carcinogenic glyphosate was, and they classified it as a group 2A carcinogen. And what they found was limited evidence of cancer in humans, but sufficient evidence of cancer in experimental animals. And they concluded strong evidence for genotoxicity. So genotoxins are just a chemical agent that can damage the genetic information within a cell. And they found this evidence for both pure glyphosate and glyphosate formulations. So when I was talking about like the active versus inert, or Roundup versus glyphosate, they found that both for glyphosate and Roundup. So yeah, it's like I'm by no means a spokesman for herbicide, but it's important to like realize that there is some risk to this application, and that's why we're like really crucial about wearing proper personal protective equipment and following the label. But for comparison, consuming alcoholic beverages is a group 1 carcinogen, and so is engine exhaust from diesel engines. So those are known carcinogens, not probable carcinogens. And then on the same level of glyphosate's new classification are biomass fuels. So like wood smoke from a campfire is a group 2A, and consumption of red meat is a group 2A. So those like campfires and eating red meat, you know, there's benefits to those, but there's also a risk of it being a carcinogen. So just like that, using herbicide, there is a risk to it, but we use aquatically approved herbicides, and there's definite like benefits to salmon habitat restoration, and it's a tool that it's pretty necessary for me to do these landscape level shifts in restoring native plants along our rivers and streams to provide the benefits that salmon have evolved to rely upon. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of the part in the slideshow that I talk about like what landowners can do, and just gardening with native plants. And if you live along shoreline, establishing those riparian buffers. And I probably already mentioned this to you, but we provide free native plants and installation of them. There is a contract similar to the knotweed one, but it basically says you won't cut down our trees that we install for 10 years. And so there is that, but I'd have to reread it because if you like decide to sell your property, you're not like, you don't have to like make the next landowner be responsible for them, for their actions. But, yeah, people get really worried about contracts, and I don't blame them. But yeah, it's not like there's going to be like someone going out to your property each year, like looking to see that you have done anything or anything like that.
Totally. Cool. Yeah, we're definitely excited for you guys to come check out the place, and definitely excited to learn more about like what kind of native plants you recommend. That's a thing we're also really interested in. One thing I know somebody in our group had asked was if you have been like to this specific property before, and it sounds like you have. Like how much knotweed did you find last time, and if you could kind of show us where you applied the herbicide before so we could get a sense of what it looks like now. I don't know if that's a thing you could do, but that might be helpful for us.
Yeah, I don't have the, I think it'd probably be like 2017 probably, and I might be able to find points for it. But I could go, if when I go out to your property and meet with you, I think I'm pretty sure I know where it is, and I could show you like, the footprint of it, of what it does, and hopefully there's not much knotweed on the property, but I could try to find those point files and like maybe give you a map too for how much points there were on that property, and what the size of them were.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Like how long does it usually take for a spot to sort of bounce back once the herbicide is applied? That's a pretty broad question, but
yeah. For AquaNeat, it's very minimal. It's like even the next growing season, but Imazapyr, if we use backpack sprayers on a site, you can definitely see the footprint for the first growing season after. So if I applied it this summer, then the next season it'd be kind of like dead still, and there will be some species coming back though, just in that 1 year, but you can like tell that like something was a little off. And then usually by the second year, after the second growing season, it's kind of hard to even find these. And when I'm like looking for old points on a river, it's usually like I only find like evidence of the ones that were treated last year and sometimes the year before.
Gotcha. Cool. That's good to know. Yeah, I can't really think of much else. I guess maybe just like, are there alternatives to using the herbicides, or is this just kind of the only thing that works for this particular plant? It seems like it's pretty hardy.
Yeah. It's for best management practices, it's usually like herbicide is recommended. I think it is, I don't want to say it's not possible. You just got to be really on top of it. If it's a small infestation, right, you could probably get it, but what it says, I think, is like cutting it 3 to 5 times each growing year. And then you want to be really careful about what you do with the cuttings, because they can reroot just from like a half an inch of standard root fragment. It can create a whole new plant. So yeah, you'd have to like, maybe if you had a tarp and you can just put everything on the tarp or burn it afterwards, that could be an option. I don't know if it will like eliminate it completely, because from what I've seen, it's like you can definitely like get the above ground growth pretty limited and like really small, but as far as like those rhizomes can go down 7 feet into the soil and spread like, I think it's 20 feet from the stem too. So it's kind of like an iceberg, like the above ground growth is just the tip of like what's going on. So that's why like we use systemic herbicides because that's transported down into the roots where the energy is stored, and so you're really like getting the root of the problem done for that. But I mean, if you're hesitant, I'm not going to try to like convince you. I mean, if I'll say this, like to control knotweed and eradicate it, on like a river system, I do need herbicide to do that. But you may be able to control small sites through mechanical or manual or tarping it off. Like if you're cutting it, you cut it 5 times and then you tarp over it. That could work too. But you'd also be like killing all the stuff too, but you wouldn't have any.
Right. Totally. Cool. Okay, that's all super helpful. There are, several people here who will be excited and interested to hear all this information. And yeah, definitely when you come out, it'll be fun to have you look around and see what you think. I can't really think of anything else. Thanks for talking to the only person that showed up for your meeting and taking time to do that. I appreciate it.
Well, I guess I didn't have to go through the whole presentation, but yeah, new times, and just gotta adapt to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Are you guys the ones running all of these calls, or I know there's like another one in a week or two?
Yeah.
Is the Salmon Enhancement group organizing all of them?
Yeah, and like so Clayton David, our fish biologist, had one last week or a couple weeks ago, and he had like 11 people. So I need to work on my outreach, I guess. But so yeah, I think yeah, these conversations on the Quil, yeah, they're all done by us and just different staff members who have different projects. Whether it's like the vegetation side of things or the actual fish or like more like geomorphological, like salmon habitat, like channel remeandering and acquisition kind of side of things too.
Cool. Cool, that's good to know. Yeah, we're new here. So we're excited to be learning stuff and hopefully can plug in at some point and help out with things. So that's good to know.
Yeah, we have a couple of volunteer opportunities too. Like right now you can still sign up for it. It's the returning summer chum. It is in Belfair, so that'd be pretty far to drive, but it's pretty fun to it's like the returning chum or like go through this like fish trap and then we count them and then release them. So volunteers like record the data on them, like what species, what sex, what size, and then you get to like actually handle the salmon and they're huge and then you get to let them go. Yeah, so that's always fun. And then I have like usually do like 6 volunteer plantings every winter. So last year we did one on the Little Quilcene, which is a little close to you all. So I'll imagine I'll probably do another one up there on at least one on the west side of the canal. And those are really fun events too.
Cool. Yeah, we'd definitely be interested. Do you have like an email list that you send stuff like that out to, or should we just check the website?
Yeah, on our website you can sign up onto. I haven't done it though, so I'm not sure like what the process is, but I know there's like a page on there for like volunteer opportunities, and you should be able to sign up so you receive our like email updates and any volunteer opportunities.
Cool. Sounds great. I'll check into it for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, it was a pleasure presenting to you, and yeah, hopefully I'll touch base with you here later this summer and see how the knotweed on the dosie is.
That sounds great. We're looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.